You're listening to the Fierce Fatly Podcast, episode 189. 6 ways hating my fat body almost ruined my life. I'm your host, Vinnie Wellsby, they, them. Let's do it.
Perfect.
Hello, welcome to this episode. How you doing? How's life? You alright? I'm alright. You alright? Alright, good. It's nice to see ya. I've got a song in my brain. Probably I've got this song in my brain because I listened to it about 100 times the other night. ADHD is fucking with me. Actually, that's not the song, but I don't know if you ever saw this, but during the pandemic, there was this person who took internet beef and made them into songs. I'm going to put it in the show notes because this thing, it's just perfection. The song goes, so he's reading the lines of like a Facebook post. Caroline, oh, keep my name out of your thin mouth. What did Caroline do, Helen? She stole my broccoli casserole recipe 8 years ago and claimed it was hers. She claimed it was hers. Oh, you not talking about my bee friend Carolyn. Oh, she a Crithin lady. She's a rotten recipe stealing bitch. Doris. Ooh, careful who your friends are. Honestly, that fucking jingle, that's the whole thing, is in my brain, and I am not mad about it because it's a bop, as the children say. It's a tune. It's a jingle. I'm gonna put the video for it. It's in the show notes. You know, the person is like he's wearing I'm presuming him pronouns like a bonnet, and then curlers in his hair. And if you go on TikTok, there's other people who've done versions of it, and some of them are just magnificent. Anyway, we're here to talk about fat stuff. Little update on the last episode. We did the work stories, and I was making the weight inclusive consulting report. Well, a couple of days ago, I managed to complete it after a zillion hours of work, a real labor of love. And so I sent it to the people who took the survey and said, here's a rough draft. If you want to have a look at it, here you get a sneak peek. And if you want to correct any mistakes that you see, let me know, like proofreading it. And it's a 58-page document, and I am so proud of myself because there was only like 4 mistakes in the whole document. It's so good. Although I keep going through and being like, oh, there's a little error. I can see a little, like, move this thing, one thing to the left or whatever. I have a degree in illustration, so I have a little bit of an eye for graphic design. So I notice like little things that are just, I'm being too perfectionist-y with it at the moment. So anyway, I'm literally looking at it as we're speaking and editing. Being like, that box needs to go 3 millimeters to the left. That way it's going to be really perfect. So silly. Anyway, so this thing is, if I do say so myself, really fucking good. And we have lots of stories. We shared some of them in the episode last time, but we've got lots more. And we've got all of the stats that have been completed and the impacts and analysis and pictures of fat people. I mean, it's amazing. So I'm going to endeavor to have the link in the show notes, but I haven't like done the landing page yet. So I'm going to hope my ADHD brain remembers to put the link in the show notes for you. In fact, I'm going to make a little reminder right now to do it. But if for any reason this reminder fails me, you can probably, when this episode is out, just go anywhere on my website and on my LinkedIn and find a link to download it yourself if you want. So, okay. And the way that you would use that report is that you would, if you're in a workplace and you're fat, you can just read it just for, because it's interesting. But also, if you are in a workplace, you can show your, if there's any decision makers about if you are allowed to invest in anti-fat bias training, or if it even is a topic that can be on the blocks, you can show this data. The data is, I looked at, so around 75+%. One of the first questions was, have you experienced anti-fat bias in the workplace? And around 75+% said yes. And then the next question was, have you experienced these things? And so then it listed out lots of different experiences of anti-fatness. And of those people that said, no, I haven't experienced it, or I'm unsure if I've experienced, almost all of them went to go on to say, oh, actually, yes, I have experienced it when I listed out experiences, right? And I think the reason for that is because that people are not aware that someone making fat jokes is anti-fatness, or people talking about how they want to lose weight because they don't want to be fat is anti-fatness. And so when it's spelled out, people are like, oh, yeah, well, definitely I've experienced that. And so the statistic was 95.65% of respondents described experiences of anti-fat bias in the workplace. 95.65%. And we had 336 survey respondents, just an FYI. So it's not an insignificant number. So as fat people, we know, right, that this is just such a common experience. But just knowing that almost 100% of every fat person in the workplace is experiencing anti-fat bias or has experienced anti-fat bias. Almost 100%. Isn't that huge? Huge. Makes me want to say that line from Pretty Woman, big mistake. Huge. Where she goes in and into the shop. Anyway, so go download it, blah-blah bloop bloop, use it, read it, whatever, or not. This might not interest you. And if that's you, that's okay. So I've been thinking about, because I have a training coming up, you'll be able to get the replay if you want, after this episode comes out, but I have a training coming up, how to unlearn anti-fat bias so that you can feel at peace with your body and others. And it's a brand new 2-hour training that I'm doing. And anyway, I was thinking about this, like what's different in my life now that I am and have been working to unlearn anti-fat bias. By the way, this is like a lifelong thing, right? Because the way that I see it is my brain is constantly being bombarded with, not as much as before because I curate my life as much as I can, but is being bombarded with anti-fat messaging. And so it's like a constant kind of like, what thing has snuck in or what thing is still there? And luckily my brain is amazing and will, ever so often be like, here's an anti-fat belief, and I'll be like, oh, thank you, brain. Let's work on that one. So anyway, it's a lifelong thing. No one's ever quite cured from being anti-fat. We all are anti-fat, right? Unless you live in this. I'm thinking like, there are some people who've like grown up and they've had wonderful experiences and have learnt to say that all of that stuff is bullshit. But I've never met one, but I know they must exist. I know that most people must exist, and they're just like, oh, what do you mean? Fat is great and thin is great and whatever. But almost all of us have those beliefs in our brains. And so I wanted to list kind of like the benefits of unlearning anti-fat bias and how anti-fatness almost, I'd say almost ruined my life, but I just think with that of holy shit, imagine if right now I was still in it. Oh my goodness. Oh, just wow. My life would look so different. So different. Here's my prediction. I would be dating some I don't want to say loser. Maybe that feels unkind. I would be dating someone who's unsuitable for me and who is I would perceive them as the best I could get as a fat person. I probably would have had kids. Not saying that having kids is bad or anything, but I don't want to have kids. And my confidence in not dating just any old Tom, Dick, or Harry has meant that I've been able to assess, did I actually want kids? Because I used to want kids. And I almost had kids with one of my ex-partners. We were talking about it, right? And I was like, let's do it. And we were together for 6 years. And so it was a very real possibility. And anyway, so I would have been tied to this partner who didn't meet my needs, or who probably maybe wasn't the greatest parent to these fictional children that I have. And then I would be continuing on the generational trauma of body hate to my children, because I'd be like, oh, we can't have fat kids. If I'm fat, we can't have fat kids. We're going to do everything to make sure that I don't fuck up these kids by making them letting them be fat. And so I'd be fucking up my kids with although I wouldn't be trying to. Obviously, I'd be thinking that let's do good by them, but making sure that they're thin people, because I fucked up my life by being fat. So let's help them not fuck up their lives by being fat. That's what I would be thinking. Promise. But then also, I'd be obviously love them lots. So would I be living where I am? Probably not. Would I be doing the same activities? Probably not. Like, it's summertime, going to the beach with my friends and playing with my dog and wearing a thong bikini. Like a couple of weeks ago, I went to the beach with a few friends and was just like, you know what? I've got this bikini bottom that the front is way too tiny. Like the front was made for a straight size person, and it would be obscene if I wore it the correct way round, and then the back was bigger. Like what the heck? Like what? Honestly, the front was made for someone who, like, I don't know, a Barbie or something. If I had worn it the front way, then it would have just have been, a thong worn the wrong way. So anyway, I wore it the other way around, and so then it became a thong bikini, and I was just like, hey, look at my bum hole. Not the hole, the cheeks. Look at my my bum cheeks, and didn't give a fuck, and it was just great. Would I have done that before? Fuck no. I'd be wearing a cover up at the beach and being like, oh my god, who can see? Like, what if I go in the water and this t-shirt is clinging to me and people can see the outline of my body? Oh, the horror. So I wouldn't be doing the same things. So yeah, anyway, that's my prediction of, and again, not saying that having kids is like some terrible thing, but if I did have kids, I didn't want to have kids, but I didn't realize that until I could get out of heteronormativity. But I would be fucking up the kids if I did have kids. They'd be great kids though. They wouldn't, imagine if I had kids, they'd be amazing. I don't want the kids. Anyway. So I thought about the kind of the 6 main ways that hating my fat body almost ruined my life. And so let's go through them and then what it's like now. Now, this is my experience. This might not be your experience. You might have different things going on. And also the kind of after unlearning anti-fat bias stuff. Again, that might not be the way other people experience it, or you would experience it if you have or are going to or thinking about unlearning anti-fat bias. This is just the way things I have seen, but my experiences are not unique. And after talking to a lot of people about anti-fatness and helping people overcome anti-fatness, these are just so fucking common experiences, eye-rollingly common. So when I say eye-rollingly, I was just like, oh, this is so sad. Like a sad eye roll of, what are we accepting? Anyway, okay, so first way is when I hated my fat body, I would restrict my food to lose weight and subsequently developed 2 restrictive eating disorders. By the way, I always say, when I say eating disorders and I say restrictive eating disorders, is I feel like when I'm putting it's kind of like a difficult thing of when I say restrictive eating disorders, I say it because I want to challenge anti-fat bias and say, by the way, fat people have restrictive eating disorders, and all eating disorders are restrictive, right? No, I don't say all, many, most. Yeah, I guess you can have like a different relationship with food, but I'd say like, obviously anorexia is restrictive, and so I had atypical anorexia. Atypical means anorexia in a fat person, and binge eating disorder, and binge eating disorder is a restrictive eating disorder. And people don't know that it's a restrictive eating disorder because they just see the consequences of the restriction. Anyway, so I say restrictive eating disorders so that people are challenged by the idea that fat people don't have restrictive eating disorders. They only have BED, which they that they perceive as a non-restrictive eating disorder, an eating disorder where you're eating too much, which is not the case. You might be eating more than your body wants, but the reason for that is because of restriction anyway. And so then I'm thinking about the idea of good fatty, bad fatty dichotomy. And when I'm saying restrictive eating disorders, am I being the quote good fatty and being like, well, I didn't have one of the greedy eating disorders, not that there is a greedy one, but that's how people perceive BED. Not everyone. So I'm thinking about, anyway, I'm one sentence in, I'm like, already dissecting every word, being like, yeah, anyway. So at the moment I'm going with using restrictive eating disorders because it feels like it's challenging anti-fatness more than it is playing into. But I'm one of those good fat people. But yeah, if that could change. All right. So from the moment I opened my eyes in the morning, I thought about food and what I would soon be, quote, allowed to eat for breakfast, and then counted down the moments until lunch and then did the same for dinner. And this behavior was praised because I was fat. I remember so clearly going to the doctors and being like, jumping on the scale, and the doctor being like, oh, wow, what are you doing? This is amazing. And I happened to be going through old doctor's notes because I had to get my doctor's records for something. And anyway, so this is like 20 years ago, and because they would weigh me every time I went to the British doctors, they'd weigh me every time. And so you'd see my weight just dramatically drop between visits, like huge amount. And I'm like, hello, this is a cause for concern, not praise. And if I was someone in a smaller body, then on my notes, on my charts, it would have been like, has a restrictive eating disorder or disordered eating, or is losing weight way too much, way too quickly. But because I'm a fat person, they were just like, yes, you get it. You keep doing what you're doing. Oh, and you're starving yourself. Great. Love it. It's working for you. Oh, by the way, while this is on my mind, I want to tell you something. So I got a new healthcare provider. My last one was just comically awful. You go in and she'd open the door and she'd be like, look at you. She wouldn't even look at you, but she'd be kind of like, what do you want? Why are you here? And when I got my ADHD diagnosis, she was like, well, people just buy them off the internet. And she's just terrible. She's terrible. Anyway, so Summit in and told me about this place they had some nurse practitioners that was taking clients. Anyway, so then I I did a virtual call with this guy who would be theoretically my new healthcare provider, and it was great, good, perfect. Told him what I did, and he was like, oh, cool. And I was like, oh my God. He didn't, he said, oh, cool. When I said I help people unlearn anti-fat bias. Anyway, so then I told him, I said, I have a history of restrictive eating disorders, as well as all of the other things, because you need to know your history. After our call, he sent me an email, and in that email was links to do 2 diets. And I was just like, I was so excited and hopeful. And then I was like, wah, wah, wah. Like, hello? Did you not hear the whole, I have a history of restrictive eating disorders? Anyway, so I was like, I think this person is a good person and cares about my care. I did not think that about my old doctor. And so he was like, book a meeting with me and we'll do like blood pressure or whatever. And so when I went to the meeting with him, I had a plan in mind to tell him ask him if he would like some feedback on making the experience more fat positive. And so I went in and I had some I took some little postcards from my business being like, this is a fat positive space. And then also some don't weigh me cards. And at the end I said, hey, this has been great. You're amazing. I was basically like, I love you. And I was like, would you like some feedback? And he said, yes. And I said, hey, this thing happened. And he was like, didn't really say much. And so then I kept talking and I was like, oh, and so my recommendation is, don't prescribe diets to anyone, even if, especially people who have a history of eating disorder. And I was like, the Canadian group of doctors have said that diets don't work. And, we have 100 years of history to show that dieting doesn't work. And I was listening to myself being like, wow, I'm just so anxious in this moment and like apologetic. And afterwards, he said, oh, but what if someone has someone XYZ? And I said, oh, are you a nutritionist? And he was like, oh, no. And I said, okay, well, then you can refer them to a nutritionist, preferably one who is health at every size aligned. And I just was like, I felt so vulnerable. And then after that, I was like, but by the way, this has been the best experience with a healthcare provider of my life, which is true. But I was just like, and also this won't be every time we meet. I'm not going to be critiquing your work every time we meet. And I'm sorry. And I was basically on my hands and knees, not literally, but I was like kissing his feet, metaphorically, being like, I'm so sorry for even bringing it up. And I was like, but I'm a good patient. And oh my goodness, I was just like observing what I was doing and being like, wow, you this is like difficult, triggering for you, something's happening. Because I wanted him to perceive me as a good fat person, not a troublemaker. I didn't want him to be writing in his notes being like, this fucking bitch came in here and told me some weird stuff and asked for evidence-based care, how dare they? But anyway, I did it, blah, blah, blah. No one died. But it really just reinforced to me, I've been doing this work for 10 years, right? I'm a very confident person. I am confident in speaking. I'm confident in overcoming difficult conversations. Like I'm able to be level-headed and able to communicate in a way that's aligned with my values. And how easy it was when there was a power imbalance for me to almost become this kind of sniveling, apologetic. That's not very charitable towards me. That's not very kind to call myself sniveling. But how quickly I try to minimize myself versus just being like, this is it. Because I have not done a lot of this stuff with healthcare providers because my old doctor was just absolutely awful. I would barely say anything to her because she was just so bad. So there was not a chance in hell I would ever have a conversation with her. When I would go into the clinic and the person taking me to the room would be like, let's weigh you, I'd say, oh, no, thanks. But that was like, someone else. It was a different power dynamic there. So anyway, I'm saying all this is I wanted to share this story, but also if you are doing this and advocating for yourself and you're feeling like, I can't do it, I'm too scared. I get it. I don't always get it because might have different identities from me, but I understand. I mean, and I've always known that everyone's different, but just think, if I found it hard and I've been doing this is my job. I've been doing this for 10 years. If I found it hard and my pulse rate quickened and you're berating yourself because you maybe forgot what to say or you didn't do it or whatever, please don't, because this stuff is difficult. All right, good. But, Reagan Chastain has courses, and also the fat doctor, Asha Lamy, has stuff like advocating for yourself at the doctor. So, go and take their stuff, and if that's helpful for you. And sometimes it's just safer just to not say anything, like with me and my old doctor. If I said, it felt like she'd be like, shut up. I hate you. Anyway, so I felt it was a positive experience, by the way, talking to that nurse practitioner. And I think that we're going to develop a really good relationship where I can continue maybe increasing my safety by advocating for myself. And hopefully then as I continue to practice that in a healthcare setting, it will become easier, is my theory. Okay, so anyway, number 2, I'm sorry, I'm just been bloody rambling on, haven't I, in this podcast? I hope that's okay. And you're just like hanging out with me no matter what I say. Maybe if someone who's new to the podcast is like, for fuck's sake, shut up. Oh, wow, I'm really projecting. I was just like, the doctor says shut up, and then the listeners say shut up. Listen, I'm just going to be myself. Tell you stories randomly. Okay, so the 6 ways hating my body almost ruined my life are to restrict food and eating disordered eating. Next, a gigantic portion of my mental energy was spent on thinking about how I looked and working out how to disguise my fatness from others. I got to events late or not at all after changing outfits multiple times, only to feel terrible in them all. Oh, that mental energy, honestly. It was a full-time job thinking about what my body looked like and what food I was allowed to eat. Allowed in quotations. That is tiring. That is really tiring. And the distress of putting on outfits and just being like, it doesn't look right. Pulling out another outfit. Oh, no, this doesn't look right either. I don't feel good. And then putting out another outfit and just being like, look at the time. I need to go. Let's try the first one again. And I can just feel that in my chest, that anxiety. I remember driving to a friend's house and just crying, and my partner at the time was just like, what's wrong with you? And I was just like, I just don't feel good. It made the whole thing where I was like, I don't even want to go. I do not want to go because of how I feel about what I look. And I know so many people have experienced that. Or, the whole time just thinking like, I just look so unattractive compared to everyone else. And, like tugging up my clothes to make sure it hides my fatness. When, I have a whole podcast episode, which is funny ways I used to disguise my I used to try to disguise my fat body. Funny ways I used to try to disguise my fat body. And, honestly, I thought I was fucking an illusionist. David Copperfield. Is that the name of that American magician, whatever, Penn and Teller. I thought I was doing some magic tricks by doing things like I would go to the store and purposefully buy clothes that were way too small but had stretch in them so that I could wear something that was like a medium or a large, in the hopes that my label might stick out and then someone might walk by, see that label and be like, oh, an M. My eyes told me they were fat, but I was wrong. They're wearing a t-shirt which is size M, even though I can see that it's busting at the seams and clearly too small for them. But no, I was wrong. They're actually a thin person. Like that's what I thought would happen. Or I would eat cereal with a teaspoon. I don't know why, because this it's not logically making sense. Surely if you ate with a huge spoon, a ladle, eat your cereal with a ladle, it would make your body look bigger. But my logic was eating with a small spoon made it look like that I was so dainty and tiny. I can only possibly fit one Cheerio in my mouth at a time. That was my thinking, that someone would see that small spoon and be like, wow, that is a tiny person using a tiny spoon to eat their one Cheerio. Wow, my eyes were telling me they were fat, but now I've seen that spoon. Are you a tiny little supermodel? Yes, you are. Oh my goodness. There's a whole episode about those silly little things that I would do. And, I'm saying silly, but, it's obviously that was very painful for me at the time and deeply embarrassing and shameful. And now I'm looking back and just being like, what was I thinking? And, there's humor there, and there's also a ton of pain. And I'm sure there's lots of things that you could probably think of ways that you might have tried to disguise your body that maybe were nonsensical. Maybe it wasn't nonsensical. I don't know. So next one, I was afraid of looking silly or unattractive. I would hide myself figuratively and literally. I didn't want to be in pictures or be seen in a swimsuit, for example. I missed out on so many joyful moments and was erased from memories because I didn't want to be perceived as my genuine self, a fat person. So yeah, that's a huge one for a lot of people, is not being in pictures. And I just really think you're erased from history, because especially if you have children, and even if you don't, we look at photos and we're like, oh yeah. And obviously sometimes we don't need photos, but if you have photos from when you were a kid, you look at those photos and you might not have any memory of the event, but you have a memory of the photo. And if, say, your mum was not in any of those pictures because she thought she didn't look good, that's so sad. You're literally being erased from that memory of the photo or the experience to be seen. And it makes sense, like if you're struggling with body image or anti-fatness, that you don't want to be seen because you see yourself as bad or less than or unattractive, and you're thinking, I'll be in the photo when I'm thin. But then you only have photos of, if you are in the photo when you're thin, you only have photos that are not representative of your true self. Like I have photos of me when I'm thin and I just think, oh, it's so sad. I was so, proud of myself for being thin. So I'm not looking back on those photos being like, oh, look at me, I was so good looking. I'm thinking, oh, I want to go and give you a hug. There's a picture of me at the counter of a kebab shop after on a night out, and I was drunk and I'm smiling and I'm like thin. And I remember being in that kebab shop and thinking, I'm not ordering a kebab. No way. I think I got just chips or something. And then it would have been like, well, I've blown the diet, and I've already blown the diet because I've drunk alcohol, and that's so many points. So I wasn't thinking, and all my friends are around me, and I'm not remembering all of the wonderful times laughing with my friends. I'm thinking what I was thinking at the time, which was, this is an anxiety-inducing moment, but I'm also proud to show my thin body. And I was proud at the time when I looked at the picture being like, oh, you can see my jawline. But now I'm over that stuff. I'm like, oh, that's so sad. I would love if I had pictures of me in all my fatness, all my unattractive angles, because I know I'd look back and just be like, oh, you little cutie. Oh. I wouldn't have if I was still in anti-fatness. I'd be like, oh God. But I really just look back now with like such compassion of who I was and who I am. Okay, next. I accepted terrible behavior from others. I was abused, homeless, and had awful jobs, surface level friendships. I tolerated dismal romantic partners, one who said he wasn't attracted to me as much because I gained a few pounds, and another who laughed at my body. I didn't believe I was worth more because I was fat, so I accepted those dynamics. My romantic partners, honestly, I always just thought, well, I'm lucky to have them. Yeah, they might be a giant dickhead, but what else? I'm not going to get anyone like them again, as in someone who tolerates a fat person. And I'm just like, oh, now I'm just like, no. Yeah. No, please don't accept that shitty behavior. No. And that was, from everyone, right? And if I had to go back 10, 15, 20 years ago and be friends with myself and my group of friends that I had at that time, I would not have fun, because all we'd be talking about is, oh my God, what diet have you tried? And how many calories does this thing have? And what do I look like? And am I as thin as that person? Am I bigger than that person? Oh my God, did you see what so-and-so is wearing? Oh, it'd be so boring. And so that's my next point is I bonded by gossiping. I wasn't exactly fun to be around. All I wanted to talk about was dieting, gossiping about other people's bodies who didn't adhere to beauty standards that I thought were acceptable. I was so passionately angry about certain things that women were doing that I perceived as unattractive or bad. I would just be disgusted by them. I was so judgmental. Like, for example, tattoos. Now I really want a tattoo. I've been thinking about it for years. But when I was younger, I'd be like, that's disgusting. Who would ever have a tattoo? It's just, if I was forced, I even remember having a conversation with someone that we were saying, if we were forced by threat of death to have a tattoo, we'd have a dot on the bottom of our soul and that would be it. And now I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, judgmental much? Like, I just really, or people wearing certain things or, dressing in certain ways that I would thought that was not my fashion sense, but I would be so angry about it and venomous because I hated myself. That was all the venom that I was getting from anti-fatness and beauty standards that I wasn't able to meet myself. And so I put down other people because it made me feel ever so slightly better. I'm not one of those people that has a tattoo. Ugh. And now I'm like, oh my God, I love your tattoos. And if someone has a tattoo that I don't think is the greatest, who the fuck care? I don't care. What the fuck? It's none of my business. Does it make them feel good? Whatever. I just wasn't fun to be around that much. I probably was sometimes, but I wasn't a terrible person. I don't know. Maybe I was. I don't know. But it was boring. Okay, finally, my life goals revolved around weight loss or attempting to attain beauty. I dreamed about the day that I would be, quote, thin enough to wear a bikini or certain clothes sizes. Other life aspirations were secondary. Thinness was the ultimate goal. That was the pinnacle of humanness. You could not say anything to me if I had reached that goal of thinness, because the way that I looked at it, it was like, get to the level of thinness, then you could unlock all of these other life achievements. Get to thinness, then you can be an astronaut. Get to thinness, then you could be a celebrity. Get to thinness, then you could have an amazing partner. So get to thinness was the thing I needed to get to in order to start my life and continue on with my life. Be an astronaut or have a partner that's kind to me or wear a bikini. I couldn't see that was possible unless I hit this first achievement. So all of those other achievements were tertiary because this is the only thing that mattered. I couldn't fathom that those other things could be done in a fat body. Or if they were, it was like I was driving a car, but I'd never passed my driving test, or I'd never learned how to drive a car. I was just driving the car. And so that you'd be driving the car really shitty. So those goals, if you did meet those goals of being an astronaut, you were a shitty astronaut because you had a bigger body. So think about the energy, if you've achieved other things in your life, the energy that it takes to achieve something really big. Like for me, my biggest achievement I perceive, one of the hardest things is my TEDx tour. It took a lot. And I think becoming thin temporarily took more. It did. It took more effort and consistency and constant thought and action for a long time to become temporarily thin. That it was more effort than to do my TEDx, which was a huge effort. It took my TEDx, the whole process was a year process, and it was just massive. It was massive. And so what have I got to show for the amount of effort I put in with being temporarily thin is disordered eating, body hate, gobs of shame, because then when I stopped being temporarily, I say thin, but I wasn't thin, which is, because we're never thin enough, are we? Right? Yeah. The amount of effort for what? For what? For what? For why? But then the amount of effort I put into my TEDx. Now I have a TEDx. I have something to show for it. A real tangible thing that I'm proud of. And yeah, I was proud of being temporarily thin when I was temporarily thin. And then I undid. And, then I was like embarrassed that I used to be temporarily thin. And now look at me, I'm a mess. So fun. So yeah. So what it looks like now, and now that I've spent a lot of time unlearning this bullshit, and not just anti-fat stuff. Like I've spent a lot of time in therapy and learning different systems of oppression. And I can tell, I feel like anti-fatness, obviously I've worked on the most, but it's all interconnected. And I also still have a ton of work to do when it comes to other systems of oppression, because I know that they're affecting me and they are harming me, and I'm therefore harming others because I have not yet understood and unlearned completely, racism or ableism or, et cetera, right? So maybe in 10 years' time, I'll be like, oh, this is 10 years ago. You never guess what I was doing. But it's, anti-fat bias is not a standalone topic. It's intersectional, and the more that you unlearn other systems of oppression, the more that all areas of your life and humanity is better, right? So, okay. So after working on unlearning anti-fat bias, I don't think about food much, aside from, oh, it's lunch, I guess I should eat, or enjoying food that I like without guilt or feeling like I'm out of control, or, food is just not, quote, a thing for me anymore. When I say a thing, I mean like an issue. Like it's a thing because obviously I eat food to survive and I enjoy food, and sometimes I might eat more food than my body wants. But if that happens, I'm just like, oh, obviously I was, really enjoying that food, or obviously I needed that for whatever reason. So versus being like, oh God, I'm such a bad person. I feel like my tummy is fuller than is slightly comfortable. But I so clearly remember that feeling of eyes opening, being like, food, almost like the Terminator, like laser eyes, red beams being like, track the food, because I was so deprived. I was so mentally and physically hungry. Thank fuck my brain did that for me. My brain was like, we need to survive, okay? Listen, you didn't eat enough food yesterday. So this morning, first thing we're doing, I'm going to remind you, this ding dong is not eating food. Come on, eat some food. Look, we're putting all our energies to get some food. And so then I'd open my eyes, would be like, and then my brain would be like, eat some food. Go get some food. For fuck's sake, get some food. And I'd be like, I'm so greedy. Look at me. All I think about is food. And my brain like, for fuck's sake. Yeah, no wonder you only think about food because we're starving. Give us some food. And then I'd pathologize myself being like, oh, I'm addicted to food. And my brain would be like, you're not addicted to food, just feed us and I'll chill out. And now because I've fed us, my brain's like, oh, phew. Don't need to remind this silly idiot that they need to eat all the time. Unless they forget because of, they're deep in work or ADHD, and then I'll feel it in my body. But it's different for different neurodivergent people. A lot of times I forget to eat lunch. I think if it wasn't for Dougal, my dog, I would forget to eat lunch quite regularly. But Dougal, bless him, oh, love him. He comes to me if it gets too late. If it gets to 2 p.m., he'll come to me and stare at me and gently tap his feet. He doesn't eat anything at lunchtime. His dinner is morning and night. But he will say, excuse me, it's time for you to get up. and will harass me. When I say harass, look at me and gently tap his feet until I get up and have lunch. But that would be different before, because I was almost overriding my neurodivergence. And the reason why I forget to eat lunch is neurodivergence. It's not because I'm like, I'm so chill around food. It's neurodivergence. But my desperate need for food, that push, that drive in my brain overcame the neurodivergent urge to forget about eating, that there's no way that I could forget, because I was that like deep in restrictive eating. That the drive was so much that, my neurodivergent was like, neurodivergence, what? We're getting this bitch to eat. Okay, so next, what I wear or how I look doesn't often come into my head, aside from, oh, I think I look cute today, or, oh, I should wash my hair tonight, or, oh, did a bird just poo on my back? So pretty much the only time I would change an outfit is because it was not right for the weather or activity, and it's not that I'm like, oh, I just don't look good in it. What happens is, if I look in the mirror and I have a little like, I don't think I look really cute, because most of the time I'm like, oh, you're cute. That's my reaction. Most of the time I'll just be like, oh, you're just such a cutie. And if I don't have that reaction, I'll be like, oh, someone's brain is having some feelings here. What is going on? And so I wouldn't be like, there's something wrong with the way I look or the clothes I'm wearing. It would be, something is happening in my brain for me to not correctly perceive myself. And so I would be like, okay, so let me support my mental health in this moment, and I will recognize that something else is going on. It's not my body. It's not that my body in the last 24 hours has suddenly turned into an unattractive body. It's that my perception of my body is changed, because I feel like after decades of my brain using my body as a easy way for me to try and manage my emotions, like pick on their body because we might get our needs met, is kind of like what my brain was thinking, but my needs were not being met by changing my body. I needed to do other work, deeper work to fix that. So I feel like sometimes my brain might slip into, something is feeling a bit shit about our life, so let's try and attack the body, see if that gets our needs met. And because now I'm like, I'm not engaging in that. That's not how we get our needs met. I'm talking to my internal family system, my talking to myself basically. How can we meet my needs? And so what I might do is I'd be like, okay, well, I'll put some dry shampoo in my hair. Like today, I was like, oh, I need to wash my hair tonight, and I want to look cute for the podcast. So I was like, okay, so how am I going to go get my needs met? I'm going to put some dry shampoo in my hair. Okay. I'm going to do curly little corners. Okay. And now I'm cute. I'm going to put some mascara on, and I feel cute, Or it could be, that might be, and that's focusing on body, but then it could be I do something else, Could be I'm like, oh, you little cutie. Like, what's wrong? How can we support you? Do you need to take it slow today? Do you need to talk to someone? And most of the time, just recognizing, this thing is happening. And honestly, it doesn't happen that much, Sometimes I'm like, I need to be looking in the mirror more, because sometimes I look in the mirror and I'm like, oh shit, like I needed to moisturize my face today, and I didn't even notice because I'm not looking in the mirror at all. Not that having dry skin is terrible sin or anything, but yeah, it's just my body's there and I like it, and I think I look cute most of the time, and NBD, no big deal. Okay, next, what I wear or how I look, I just read that one. So if you know me, if you listen to the podcast for a while, you know that I don't give a fuck about looking like a giant dingaling. Before, I would be wanting to curate the way that others were perceiving me. So now I'm able to work to be my authentic self, and it's so freeing to practice being my authentic self. It's a practice. This is a process that is I think maybe the hardest for me, because in therapy, the word that always comes up, I need to get a fucking tattoo of this word. Troublemaker. Troublemaker. Don't be too weird. Don't be too big. Don't be a troublemaker. Don't ask for what you need. It's just an ongoing thing that I'm still working on, is working on being my authentic self and learning who I really am. And so I've learned so much in the recent years of, I've worked out that I'm non-binary, I've worked out that I'm queer, I've worked out I'm neurodivergent, and I feel like I have more ways. I've worked out I'm disabled. There's so many more ways I don't yet know myself. And so the more I'm practicing being my authentic self will naturally make barriers appear, because when you're being expansive in your identity, you're brushing up against your own kind of barriers of like, oh, but don't do that. Like, be queer, but don't be too queer. Like, be fat, but don't like be too fat. Be, just be a respectable version of that thing. And my authentic self is not the respectable version. It's my authentic version. It's the weird, silly Billy ding-a-ling ding-dong. Yeah. So that's a practice. But a lot of the times I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck about doing things in public, for sure, I wonder if there are things that I wouldn't want to do. You know what? Maybe what I'm not ready for yet is like just being completely naked in public. No, actually, no, I would do that. Yeah. If there was like a photo shoot or something. No, I would. Yeah, but I wouldn't do it if I was just on my own. Probably, I guess that's a stretch, right? Like, why would I be just walking around naked in public? I would be arrested, but I guess in Vancouver, it's legal to have, to display your nipples no matter your gender. So I could be going around with my tits out if I wanted to. Never seen anyone do it. So I'm probably not minimizing myself by not doing it. And also I don't necessarily want to do that. So yeah. Anyway. Okay. Next, I have wonderful relationships with people who like me because of who I am and not contingent on my weight. And also, I'm a better friend because I'm not judging other people on what they look like. And I'm able to navigate relationship challenges and not just accept less because I feel unworthy. I'm in relationships with people because I genuinely like them and not because I feel like I can't do better. I was telling my friend last night, I had a call with my Australian friend, Maddie, and I was telling her about 15 years ago, I had a friend. I was in love with this guy, right? And I was friends with this guy, but I wanted more. And we would like mess about, and it was clearly like we were basically in a relationship, but I don't know. It was weird. Basically, he obviously just didn't like me enough to want to be in a relationship with me, but would like get the other benefits. Anyway, so one of my friends, who was like a friend of a friend, but then she became a friend. One day she came around my house and she was like, "Oh, guess who I had sex with?" And I was like, "Oh my God, tell me who?" And she's like, "This person. This guy that I was in love with." My friend was like, "Oh, so did you like confront her and stuff?" And I was like, "No, I just ghosted her. I just never spoke to her again." And we spent the evening together, and I was in my brain seething, but I didn't say, "What the fuck?" Because I was like, I couldn't do it. I couldn't navigate a challenge in the relationship. I mean, the relationship would have ended, even now, if that happened to me, I'd be like, whoa, what is going on? That's really inappropriate. And anyway, so, but I just ghosted her. Now I'm going to an event and I know she's going to be there, and it's quite an involved event. And I'm like, oh, God, what am I going to do? And so I'm like, I'm going to talk to her about it. Versus my old self would have been like, well, I'm just going to ignore her. And ignoring her might be the right strategy, but I've decided my strategy is, if it feels appropriate and it feels safe and it feels like it's beneficial, I'm going to say, hey, do you remember why, you remember we used to hang out a lot and now we don't, and this is why. But it depends. But I mean, that comes with general confidence. And that's not necessarily unlearning anti-fat bias. But my relationships are not based on gossiping about others and what they look like and what weight they used to be, what weight they've lost, and, who's failed on the diet or whatever. So the next point is I don't talk about other people's bodies. I don't care what someone looks like, if they wear Crocs or if they're fat or straight sized. When I say I don't care, I probably do care, like, if I see someone and they've got an amazing outfit on, I'm moved by their amazing outfit and them embodying fabulousness. Like, I would be like, I care because I'm enjoying, my eyeballs are enjoying someone feeling like they look good. Like, so, like, I care in that way, but I'm not like, I'm not going to be friends with so-and-so because they're like, they wear like embarrassing clothes. I don't. Yeah, I don't bond by gossiping anymore. I bond with people on shared interests, laughing and giving excellent trash TV recommendations. And you know what? When I decided that I'm not going to bond on gossiping anymore, I lost a couple of friendships because I realized we had nothing in common. All we would do is get together and be like, oh, did you see what so-and-so posted on Facebook? Oh, can you believe it? And then we'd be friends with so-and-so. You'd be like, hi, so-and-so, how are you? Oh my God, what is she wearing? And so when I decided that in therapy, I was just like, oh shit. We don't actually like each other that much. We're just both so deeply insecure. That's all we've got in common. And so the friendships drifted apart because of that. And finally, my goals include things that enrich me and others. So meaningful things, fun things. I have the energy to grow in life because my brain is not consumed with thinking about my body and food. Also, I know I don't need to actually have goals in order to prove that I'm a good person or, quote, make up for my ugly body. That was a big thing okay, my goal is to be thin. I couldn't achieve that goal. Okay, so I can't achieve that goal. So I'm going to try and prove to other people through my hard work that if I can't be thin, I can be a hard worker. I can engage in capitalism like the best of them. I am good. I'm good in these ways. I'm a good fatty. I eat salads and I exercise and I work really hard. And I'm a good partner and la 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 la. Now I'm just like, what's really, I think, tied in with anti-fatness that I'm unlearning a lot and pushing myself on a lot currently is ableism and capitalism of working hard and encouraging others not to work hard. I felt a little bit triggered. I felt a little bit like a feeling came up. I was talking to two interns. I was consulting for this business and they had two interns and we were meeting for the first time. And I said to the interns, like, oh, when can you have this thing ready? And one of them said, oh, well, I guess I could work over the weekend and have it done for next week. And I said, absolutely not. I don't want you working over the weekend. No working late. I don't want any of this. Like, work as little as possible. And then I said it to those two interns and I said it to the other intern as well. And I was just like, oh, I hope you're not working. Don't work too much. Don't work too much. Don't work too late. And afterwards I was like, I was feeling away. I was like, oh, am I displaying like I'm such a lazy fat person? Like a feeling came up of, yeah, look at you, lazy fat person. And I was like, oh, brain, interesting. Before I wouldn't have said don't work, I would have been like, well, no, because, I work over the weekend. Yeah, because fat people, we're just like really hard workers. And that was safety, right? So I'm not saying that was like a bad thing to do because I was creating safety for myself, right? And so if you're doing that, then, if that works for you and that creates safety, then that's a perfect technique and tactic. But now I realize I don't want to engage in good fatty stereotypes, tropes. I don't want to prove. I don't want to engage. I don't want to prove that I'm a good person by engaging in capitalism, by engaging in healthism and racism and et cetera, right? I just want to give myself permission to rest and do what I need to do to serve me and serve others. Like, I feel like I wanted to teach the interns that being overworking is not, I'm not going to be saying to them, you're such a good person because you overworked or you worked over the weekend. But it's complicated. It's complicated. It's complicated. It's complicated. Sometimes that's not possible for many different reasons. So, yeah. So how has focusing on body size and dieting affected your life? What do you think? Maybe you want to write down some things of maybe some things are still affecting your life. I find this important for me is trying to work out how things are affecting me so then I can create meaningful goals around making those changes if it feels good for me. That works for my brain, is making goals around that. So that might be helpful for you or not. Whatever. You do what you want. Right. Yeah. So my training that I've got coming up in a couple of weeks, which will be done by the time you're listening to this podcast, but you can get the replay. It's called How to Unlearn Weight Bias and Be at Peace with Your Body and Others' Bodies. And so if you want 50% off the price, use the code special50. So that's a 50% off price that contributes towards economic justice. So if you feel like you're someone that deserves economic justice, we all do. But if you would like that 50% off price, use the code 50special. I'll put the link for that doobly-doo in the show notes. So there you go. There you have it. There's the 6 things. I'm always like, I want you to talk to me. I'm like, what's your experiences? You can't talk back. I'm just here doing a recording on my own. That's, I've got this workshop coming up, so I can ask people. We can have chin wags. I love talking and hearing other people's experiences. Do you know why? It's because so many people are like, yes, that's my experience. Yes, me too. Yes, many people's experiences are super common, and it's nice to know that you're not alone in this bullshit. Okay. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I hope you have an enjoyable summer if it's summer where you are. And if you feel like supporting the podcast, you can go to Ko-fi, make a $5 hair donation, and you'll get the size diversity resource guide, which is so fucking good. It's so good. It's got if you want more fat stuff in your life, it's got, hundreds of Instagram accounts to follow, TEDx talks, books, things to watch, where to shop, science. There's so much in there. It's really good. So you can get that for $5. I'm going to put the guide that I just created, the report I just created. I'm going to put that as you can choose to donate if you want to, but you can also get it for free. But I'm going to put that as a perk on the $5 tier as well, so you can get that as well. Is my plans for the future. And if you would like me to come into your workplace and do some training on anti-fat bias, then just reach out to me, send me an email, and we can book a discovery call for 30 minutes to have a chin wag about what you would like to achieve and see if I can help you. I did a training a few weeks ago, which was a month ago plus, which was just 15 minutes long. So, I mean, we can do 15 minutes to 5 hours, 6 hours all day. Whatever you would like. Okay. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Remember, you are worthy. You always were. You always will be. Remember to stay fierce fatty. Goodbye. Tatty bye.